How every morning starts. Cup of coffee. And away we go. Hope you enjoy the video. Hello everyone, back again to work on floors. I want to preface this whole situation with saying up front, I know this is wrong, but because the floors are so bad, I couldn't cut everything out. Some of it's attached to braces. Some of it just has to stay because I can't get it out of there in time. So what I'm doing is I'm putting these in, and once again, I know that it's wrong, but bear with me. It's better than Fred Flintstone in this thing for 2,500 miles or more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp it in place as close to where it's supposed to be as possible. And then I'm going to start welding. Now, I have measured, of all things, an OBS pickup truck, which is the, what is it, 88 to 98/99 Chevy pickup truck. And the floor size is almost identical. So with that in mind, with bracing and all, in the event that I do keep this car, what I'll probably do is jack the front of the body up from the body mounts, cut this whole center section out, and stitch a new floor in it. It really isn't, I mean, it really doesn't matter what the floor is out of, right? As long as it's a floor. Here we go. And there's a brace there. There we go. Yeah, we'll smack that with a hammer a couple times once we get a few tacks in. And we'll start. And why did it suddenly not set down over here? Probably because this one's in the wrong place. Well, I got something wrong. What did I do here? All right, so we just keep resetting and moving until we find the right spot, and then I'll get back with you. Well, there you have it. There's some floor. It'll hold seats, and it won't play Fred Flintstone at all. Still a couple little tiny holes I have to fill, but I'll do those with seam sealer because there's not enough metal there from which to weld anything. I did start stitching in the one rocker panel. As you can see, it's in the hole, needs jacked up in the bottom and attached to the inside. There's very little underneath there to grab, but I do have some of this, which I can make a channel out of that will attach underneath and hold that in place, because it's got to roll up quite a ways at the back, as you can see. So I'll continue on with that. Floor pans are in. Next I'm going to go ahead and I have a couple little spots I need to fix inside. One right there. Gotta fix that hole. I have to fix that hole, and once I get that fixed, Then I'm going to start putting in Dynamat and getting the interior all insulated and ready for at least a little bit of upholstery before the trip. I have a couple different versions. I have this stuff up here, which is about 3/8 of an inch, I guess, or something like that. And then I also have from good old Amazzoni some stuff that's about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put the 1/2 inch obviously on the firewall and underneath my feet, and then the rest will go around the rest of the car. I'm going to probably do some on the headliner too, because obviously you pull a lot of heat from there. So that's the project of the day. Ooh, oh, you gotta love it. And onward and upward. Those of you that have been watching for a while understand that this is the most ridiculous, complicated tilt front end on the planet. The problem with that is I wanted to retain the front bumper and the grille. It just looks too darn good to get rid of it, because then it changes the whole face of the car. So in order to do that, it had to go forward, and then it had to go up over so that it cleared the bumper. So I made this little system with the extra arm here, right here, so that once it was forward, it slides straight forward, and as it goes forward, it goes up. And then you pick the nose up and roll it over the front, which makes it ridiculously heavy. Well, one of the problems I have is lateral movement. And by lateral movement, I mean these mounts right here have a tendency to roll to the side. So I've decided to go ahead and put a piece of angle iron in between right here, which just happens to be exactly the length of the angle iron. I bought 36 inches. I did not plan that, but once again, even a blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while. So I'm going to weld that in place. Now that changes a whole bunch of other things which need to be taken into consideration as well. One being radiator placement. Now originally, I was going to put the radiator way up here. But if I put the radiator way up here, as this angle iron comes back, it's going to smack the top of the radiator. Another problem with that is the radiator would have to be low, which means it would be below the thermostat housing, which then I'd have to buy a different thermostat housing with a cap in the top so that I could properly bleed the system and get the air out. By putting this angle iron in, it cures all of that, because now I can put the radiator right here, right in front of the engine. It fits just fine. I have the old existing brackets from the front upper control arms that I can bolt the bracket in perhaps and make the radiator fit right here. These will be clear of it because they'll stop. Well, if you check from here, 8 inches, 8.5 inches are the stop here. So as it slides back, well, you can't see me now. I'm not going to re-edit. So it's 8 inches from here to where the angle iron is. As it slides back to the stop, it's still 8 inches ahead, which means that the radiator can be anywhere here, which is behind this, but ahead of that, ahead of the motor, and it'll fit in there just fine. So that is the plan at this point. I'm going to go ahead and tack this in place. Problem with this tilt front end is we got to do a lot of measuring and a lot of praying, because I do not have assistance to tilt the front end to confirm that it's going to work. So we got to do that. Another thing that we ran into a problem, and of course it's always something. Let me take you over there because this is kind of crazy. The timing pointer. Now I bought 3 of these for the front of this engine. Because I'm using a 6-inch harmonic balancer, I had to order a 6-inch timing pointer. Well, the problem is they're all on back order, lost on a boat from China, wherever. So this is a 7-inch. So what I ended up doing was painting the end of the dot orange, and then I bent it down, set it on 0 so everything is zeroed out, and that way I can at least still check my timing. It's not the right way But the only other way to do it is by ear, and you know how that works. I've been real lucky in the past, but I can't take a chance. This is kind of an oddball situation to begin with. I don't want to take a chance on just having the timing too far up where you can't hear it detonating because the exhaust is so loud and burning a piston halfway to Bristol, Tennessee. So we're going to continue on. I'm going to tack that in place, start mocking up some brackets. I'll take you along for the ride, and we'll see if we can't figure out a radiator. Onward and upward. Now, I know some of you, maybe a few of you, after the Hot Rod Power Tour and seeing this fine unit out there, hopefully if it made it, are asking, well, why didn't you do it this way, or why didn't you do it that way? It's, well, because I only have a few subscribers, and I've only had a couple comments in the entire build. Are there better ways? Absolutely. Could somebody help with some ideas? Absolutely. Only problem with that is nobody has stepped to the plate and given me more ideas. I've had a bunch of great help from friends that I met on the Power Tour, but the reality is this is the only vision that I have as far as what works. So this is the vision that I've got to go with as to make it all work. So is it the best way? Absolutely not. Is it the only way? Absolutely not. But it's the way I figured it out, and it works, but it's ridiculously heavy. It kind of gets in the way, but in order to get the final look that I wanted, this is what I ended up with. So if somebody has ideas now, later, whatever, please pop them up there before it's too late and I make more mistakes. All right, now we're going to do some welding. We'll get back with you in a minute. So there you go. We've added that piece of angle iron all the way across, so now there's no lateral movement. Now, it didn't need any flex in it because these are actually parallel. It slid fine, so that is not an issue. The issue was that it would try and roll over to one side or the other, the left or the right, which, if you look at the shape of the bumper, you can kind of understand. Once this caught this corner, it would try and roll around the side, which just made everything ridiculously impossible for me to get straight in the hole. Now, this will actually help when pulling it up by myself, because as I pulled it up before, it tried to go to one side or the other, and when it did, everything bound up. So there's a possibility that from this point, maybe in a situation where I absolutely have to, I can get this thing to work with me instead of against me to get it tilted up. We'll see. So now we're going to move on to the radiator and see what can be done there. I'm going to have to mock everything up, figure out some brackets. So I'll take you along for the ride here. Once I get a few things set up, we'll figure out what we're doing. Yeah, I'll take you for a little tour here. Well, not a tour, but I had my choice of this radiator, which is actually for a OBS, old body style Chevy or GMC pickup truck, kind of like my old Hi-Ho Silver there. The problem with it is 33 inches wide. So we move on back around to the front. I'm going to take you with me because I'm not going to turn the camera off, turn it back on. Once again, I'm not an editor or a videographer, and I'm going to wipe sweat off my forehead while I'm on my way, because I'm melting already. The frame rails in between are only about 31 inches. So I ordered this online. It's a little bit smaller. It's actually a 3-core aluminum radiator with fans for a Nova. So should be okay. We'll see how she does. I don't have much choice. It's what'll fit in the hole. So this is what we're going to be working with. Now I'll set you up in the pedestal here, or the tripod if you're a videographer or whatever. I'm going to turn you around this way. I don't know how well that works, how well you'll be able to see. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe that's a little better. Like think I know. Anyway, I do a lot of this stuff from the seat of my pants because I don't know camera placement and lighting and sound and all that other garbage. I'm just a bow hunk out in the middle of nowhere trying to build a car. So, if I can do this without dropping it, my thought is put this right here. Now if I put it here, it should be just about on the money. I could probably move it right in front of those brackets. My radiator cap is above the thermostat housing, which means that I can get proper flow. I should have plenty of wind sucking through because I've got all sorts of wind in the front, open air. And then I've got plenty of room to put my condenser up there without interfering with the air coming through here. Now, one of the big things that people forget is you put your AC condenser right tight to the front of this radiator. That condenser is bleeding off heat too. So let's have the air going through. We're going to preheat it with a condenser, then run it through the radiator and hope that this gets cooled off enough. No. How about if we move the condenser way up here so there's airspace in between? And I can lay that down, put a fan sucking from underneath, blow into whatever. I can do it totally separate with a separate set of brackets and make it safer. So somehow or another, this can go about there, maybe right in front. I can even drop it down a little bit as long as my cap is about even with the thermostat housing. So we'll see what we can come up with there. Maybe I'll mock up a bracket across the bottom. The other wonderful thing about these things is you buy them not knowing how you're going to mount them. And of course this one has nothing to mount with. Yeah, it's got a couple holes. You trust that shaking down the road with that 1/8 of an inch of aluminum through the top? So I think what I'm going to do is cradle from the bottom and maybe make just a little rubber bracket for the top, kind of like they have in a Chevrolet, to just hold it from moving forward and back. The bottom, same way, just a big flat surface. So I can probably do the same thing. I'll notch it for these bolts, but not have it close enough to hit in the shroud. And that way I can get a little bit of the weight resting on the stronger surface. So let me do a little figuring, wiggling, jiggling. Oh, here's something for you. Can you see that? No, you can't. Let me get it up. What kind of a fitting is that? It's got a hole in it, goes all the way to the radiator, but I've seen a lot of clip-on, clamp-ons and stuff like that, but what is that? So I'm gonna have to drill that and tap it for a plug, I guess. I have no idea what you would do with that. So, a few of the little things that we're gonna mess with. So I'm gonna start by hanging a bracket underneath there. We'll get this in, maybe just setting on it, and we'll see what we can do from there. I'll be back. So as I was talking earlier in this video about radiator placement, you can see how mistakes would have been made if I hadn't put the water pumping all in. Because right now, it's suddenly way farther forward. So I'm gonna have to make up different brackets. Now I do have the possibility of leaning it this away, leaning it this away, but I wanna have some room. So right about there is probably where she's gonna be. So we'll figure that setup up and go from there. The crazy part is, I was really close to starting to weld. And as with everything else, if you don't second guess yourself, I know it's not a great thing all the time, but if you don't second guess yourself on stuff like this, you can end up cutting parts out, you can end up destroying pieces, and just making an overall mess of things. Now, as near as I can figure, once again, remembering that my brackets are going to come back here 8 inches, which is right to there. My radiator fits inside of the frame rail, so I'm still okay. But I have to remember also that when my bracket comes back, that's where this angle iron's going to be. And it's going to be right about there, probably 2 inches up. So I need to be careful. I've got to be underneath that. So what do? Do you notch the angle iron over here? No, because as it slides back, it's not going to roll over the top of the radiator anyway. So I'm pretty much in a pickle there. I pretty much have to slant the radiator back at the top and forward at the front. So we're going to fiddle with that for a while. And when I finally figure something out, I'll show you what I came up with. Hopefully it'll work the first time. Thought maybe you'd like a shot of the front of the engine, just so you can see how it all comes together. I'm reaching over the hood, but that looks pretty badass, doesn't it?